Hey! Namaste!
Hello everyone!
I'm Sunflower Tho'ra.
I'm Jono Tho'ra.
And we're the THO'RAS.
THO'RAS.
And this, as you know, is the
LUNAR
LUNAR CYCLE Show.
Episode 4. Here we go.
Episode
This
4.
is it. We're
Episode
going to show
4.
the show.
Oh my gosh, Tho'ra.
Tho'ra?
We totally finished a full cycle of the LUNAR CYCLE Show.
We did it. We did it.
Wow, here we go. We've talked about a lot of things.
The mystical, the physical, understanding the relationships between the moon and Earth and the sun.
It's been all about trying to help ourselves and to help anyone who's tuning into this show figure out how to live in sync with the cycles of the cosmos. And I think that there's more we could do about this.
And there is, and it's explaining metaphysics.
Metaphysics? What's metaphysics?
Metaphysics is the merger between the physical and the mystical.
Ah, so these things that we've been talking about, we're going to marry them today?
Pretty much.
Beautiful. Well, I feel like we need to go get some things to do it.
Let's take the elevator.
Ah, lovely. Oh, there you go. So, something that is very foundational to understand is that we live in a duality reality. So this beautiful symbol here, you may recognize it as the yin-yang. Basically, what it helps us understand is that while we live in a duality reality where there is things like light and dark, core and void, good and bad, day and night, so forth and so on, it's not as simple as these things just being black and white and separate. Rather, there's a little bit of one in the other. And so the yin-yang is a beautiful representation of this. And this, my loves, is just the truth. We live in a duality reality. Also, something important to understand is that while there are fundamental pieces of reality, like the core basic duality that is at the foundation of this reality, reality is also like this mirror. So while duality is being put into reality through this mirror, it's also being reflected back to us in many diverse ways of how that duality gets to kind of switch and swirl like in that yin-yang. And we have then a lot of different kind of pointers to what is the true foundation of this duality reality. To understand the basis of our duality reality, we have identified two forms of duality that are really foundational to understanding physics, mysticism, and metaphysics.
So we have this concept called core and void, this point that is the center of this spatial void, or space is one kind. But effectively, the core is, in essence, actually a surface, and it only appears to be infinitely small, but as you zoom into it infinitely, once you go inside it, you actually notice that the inside of it is also infinite, and that infinite is another void. You can zoom out, and that would actually, if you infinitely zoom out, you'll eventually then see the surface of that void, which is then thus another core. This is this kind of marriage coupling throughout all of the universe that combines all fields and all particles together.
So we also have on this other axis light and dark. These concepts probably are not too unfamiliar to you, as we have things like daylight and we have things like shadows. So light and dark also really important for us to explore today.
Let's get physical. Okay, so here we have the physical manifestations, the direct physical manifestations of core, void, light, and dark. Now the core's manifestation is in the form of particles. Now, what are particles? Well, often in physics, we always think of particles as atoms or subatomic particles like quanta. But there's actually many types. Basically, any object actually counts as a particle. Human body is a particle. A ball, like a play ball, is a particle. All the way up to planets, all the way up to stars, galaxies, even spatial voids themselves, which are spherical, count as a body of some kind, and all of these have fields, which is an element of void. Now, fields are always directly coupled with a particle because there's always a particle and there's always everything else. And in essence, you always have these particles which have these fields inside them. And as you zoom out and zoom in infinitely, you see these layers compounded, and that is this incredible interconnection between all of reality. Now, next we have the dark and light manifestations of vibrations and substances. Substances is basically a kind of any kind of substance. It's this kind of mass, this matter of any kind of material, usually and most obviously particles. And the vibrations are how that substance vibrates. All substances vibrate, and all vibrations need a substance to vibrate in essence. And all of these all relate to each other, and they all have mirrors, which are reflections. All right, let's get reflective with our physics. Let's start with mass. Mass is it's particles with substance. Think of it this way, where you have a particle, which is a point, but of a substance, which is of many points. And think of that substance being crushed. That is this kind of mass, this density that's being formed. Very much like a planet, but no different from an atom, which has its own mass. Space is the next one, where space is the merger between the dark and the void. It's this substance of fields, the substance of the field, which is the space itself that things exist in. Next would be the light void, this vibration of the void. And imagine this, that we're in this field and we're a point in that field, and the field is vibrating, and that makes us change and move, and that is time. That's where time is. And finally, energy, the merger between particles and vibrations. Particles that vibrate on their own. Think of the photon, where we have the photon of light and the particle of light, all the way up to the star. A star, a macro particle, is of light as well. A vibrating, internally, constantly vibrating core. And that is reflective physics.
All right, time to talk about the mystical side of this beautiful two base forms of duality in reality, core and void, and light and dark. So in the side of core and void, we have the two energies of masculine and feminine. So these are probably words you've heard of before as well, but unlike the concept that we have in a lot of cultures around the world that men are masculine and women are feminine, turns out, kiddos, we're all masculine and feminine, because what masculine is really about is action, about the doing, about being assertive. And feminine is all about allowing, being passive, being receptive, and accepting. And these are things that all peoples do. And then on the side of light and dark, we see two dual concepts of truth and mystery. And so something that we all know, we all have some truth, some knowing, and there's all aspects of things that are mysteries to us, things where it is unknown what's happening or what's true. So moving on to the reflective intersections of core and void and light and dark within these mystical concepts, first we start with light core, which is courageous love. So this is where that masculine power of action and doing meets with the truth, which is love. And this is where love meets into the world with passion to create action in its name. Then when we're looking at light void, that would be the combination of light and feminine. We see surrendered love. So love is still the truth, but now rather than doing something action about it, it's about opening up and surrendering to the truth of love, being open, receiving the truth of love. So moving over to the dark sides of things, we have the dark core, which is where we are searching for the truth, where it's not necessarily apparent for us, but we're using our action of masculine to find the truth. And then on the dark void, this dark feminine, we find that we are allowing the mystery. The things that we don't know, we accept. And we allow this unknowing to unfold until eventually we find our way into knowing and truth once again.
All right, and now that we've done mystical and physical, let's get to the metaphysical.
Oh, yeah!
Metaphysical duality.
So much fun. So, as we've been talking about, there is at the very base of reality this concept of core and void. But it's not just core and void when we look at metaphysics, rather it is masculine and vibration for the core.
And feminine and matter or substance for the void.
What fun. Let's find out some more. Now it's time to take those concepts of core and void and light and dark from our understandings of them in the physical and the mystical and marry them together in the synthesis known as the metaphysical.
The metaphysical core, void, light, and dark all have reflections. These reflections resemble earth, water, air, and fire. These also are similar to the phases of matter in physics, which are liquid, solid, plasma, and gas. All right, folks, let's start with the first element, the top element of fire. Fire is life. Fire is passion. Fire is very much like the flame, or its essence, the flame of the candle, which gets bursted into life on a spark and then fizzles out when it runs out of fuel or is snuffed. Fire is no different from the chemical furnace, the fire in our bellies that require food in order to continue. This flame, this fire, in essence, is what makes life. This allows us to continue moving forward. Fire is the energy of love, which is truth. Fire is the marriage between core and light. When a core catches fire and becomes light, and bursts into light, very much like a star, which is in essence another type of fire, an alchemical fire, an alchemical furnace. That is the element of fire.
The next element is air. So air is kind of gassy, and so it is this element that exists inside our bodies right now. We are all breathing air. It exists here in the atmosphere. On other planets, air is different kinds of gases, and air is this combination of light. You can think things are airy, things are light, as well as void. It's all of this space, and in terms of being feminine, it's passive and it's receptive. Things can move right through air. And so air really teaches us about patience. It teaches us about allowing. And so one beautiful gift of air is when we surrender to our breath, we don't even have to pay attention. We just breathe on our own all the time. That air teaches us that beautiful lesson that in time, everything surrenders to love. And so that's why air is light, with that truth of love, as well as feminine and void, with that surrendering and allowing.
Our next element is water. Water is flow, which allows truth to fall into the depths of the dark void, very much like the depths of an ocean where it, as you further just try to see, the light gets wobbly, and it gets very wobbly. And space is the same way. As light travels through space, it gets distorted, and the truth becomes distorted as such. Water is of the void and of the dark, and is a very passive element. In essence, it's also the element of acceptance. The void is the space which allows the mystery, and that is the element of water.
Our final element is the element of earth. This is an element that is of darkness and of the masculine, of the core. It has substance, it has mass, it exists in a mostly solid form, yet it is also an element where we can't really see through it the truth of light which is at the core, the center of our earth in the form of magma, we can't actually see it. And if we want to understand the truth, we have to be persistent. We have to dig deep down into the earth. And then in doing so, we can reveal its layers of ancient truth and wisdom to us. So this is an element that is about continuing forth, that in order to find the truth, we must ground ourselves as we continue to be active in our searching for it.
That was our introduction to metaphysics and our explorations. More on that later in many, many videos to come. But for now, it's time for the mystical part of our show.
Our current moon phase. Let's talk about it. So, the moon phase that we're experiencing right now is the last quarter moon. And each last quarter moon, similar to the first quarter moon, is about obstacles. It's about things needing to shift as we're moving in between bringing our intentions to manifestation and moving into our next intention setting. Now with this last quarter moon, we are analyzing what is it that we need to keep, what was working for us as we've been in this exploration of this lunar cycle, and what's not. What do we just need to let go? What's not working for us anymore? And so right now, as you are working on your intentions and you use the full moon to bring them to manifestation, you're probably noticing that there are some things that are still kind of a little bit in the way. Figure out what those are. Let them go. At the same time, you're probably figuring out what things are really just working for you. And I urge you to keep those because they're working so well. Time for reflection and a time for continuing forward, onward, and upward to the next moon cycle.
And that's our 4th episode of the Lunar Cycle Show, and we have done it.
We did it.
We did it.
4 episodes. Well, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4. That's a whole lunar cycle. Yeah, those 4. We had 5 fingers, but those were 4. So,
let's dance.
Let's dance.
Lunar Cycle Show.
Lunar Cycle Show.
Lunar Cycle Show.
Lunar Cycle Show.